ราบสวัสดีท่านแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านนะคะดิฉันสวัยฉัตรกุลชรนิตยาจิรแพทย์ค่ะรับหน้าที่เป็นผู้ดำเนินรายการแล้วก็ต้องขอต้อนรับทุกท่านค่ะได้เข้าสู่งาน Sustainability Expo 2023 นะคะซึ่งช่วงเวลาต่อจากนี้เป็นช่วงที่มีชื่อว่า SXXC ASEAN Forum Battling Marine Debris to Preserve Biodiversity ค่ะ Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the press, I'd like to welcome all of you to the Sustainability Expo 2023 in this session of SXXC ASEAN Forum Battling Marine Debris to Preserve Biodiversity. Now, our topic is Battling Marine Debris to Preserve Biodiversity. It aims to explore policies, strategies, and practices in preserving marine diversity from ASEAN and beyond. So, let's meet our first speaker. Please put your hands together and welcome Dr. Teresa Mundita Eslim, Executive Director, ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. ขอเสียงปรบมือต้อนรับท่านด้วยนะคะ Dr. Teresa will come with the topic of ASEAN Regional Action Plan for Combating Marine.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to speak about the problem of marine debris in the ASEAN, affecting ASEAN biodiversity. So for those who are not familiar with ASEAN yet, ASEAN are the countries in Southeast Asia, 10 of them organized together to address common problems in the region. Okay? Of course, one of them is Thailand and the Philippines, where the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity is located. Right, so the ASEAN region is known to be very rich in biodiversity. 3% of the world's, even if we're only 3% of the world's surface area, 25% of all known species of plants and animals are found in the region. And 37% of these are found only in ASEAN and nowhere else in the world. Okay, and as far as marine biodiversity is concerned, we have one of the longest coastlines. We have 173,000 kilometers of coastline. We have also 75% of the world's coral reef areas, 600 species of hard corals. That's actually more than the coral species that you can find in the Great Barrier Reef. 70% of the world's mangrove species, 23 of the world's seagrass species, and more than 1,000 species of reef-associated fish. Okay. 3 of the 10 countries are also part of the Coral Triangle, and that's known as one of is the Amazon of the marine biodiversity. There's 3 countries, but maybe it's going to be 4 because Timor-Leste will be is in the process of joining the 10 countries in maybe next year. Of 7 marine turtles, 6 species of marine turtles are here in the ASEAN. They breed, they nest, and they move, and they feed in the coastal areas of the of our region. Okay, and these are just some of them. And the map that you see shows actually some interconnections. They move across the different countries in Southeast Asia. Okay. Actually, the photo doesn't even show the movement because recently there has been findings of marine turtles also moving from Vietnam and Thailand towards the Philippines and also the Indian Ocean. Okay, we're also connected through the migratory birds. So we have the marine turtles, then we have our migratory species. The ASEAN is part of the East Asian Australasian Flyway, and we actually have what we call the ASEAN Flyway Network. So during the winter season in the north, they would move towards our region, the ASEAN, going to the south. And we have around 50 million migratory birds, and there are 36 of these are threatened and 19 are near threatened. So to be able to continue being a productive area for these birds, because they feed, they have their summer break here, we need to have productive, we need to have healthy coastal wetlands that is required for feeding and for watering areas during their migration period. Okay. So there are other charismatic species that connect us in ASEAN. We have different species of dolphins. We have whales that move across our, that move within our marine areas in ASEAN. And the map will show where Irrawaddy dolphins can be found. And some of them really, although some of them are localized in population, they are known to also move across political boundaries within Southeast Asia. Okay? And we have whale sharks that also migrate across our marine waters. And this shows that there are sharks that breed in our coastal areas, and these sharks in shallow water. And then these sharks, as they grow older, they go beyond the borders and breed in other areas of Southeast Asia, within our region. The ACB also did a study together with the Pew Foundation on the connectivity of our fisheries. These maps show the dispersal of larvae from our coastal areas and then moving across, again, across Southeast Asian waters. So in different times of the year, during the northeast monsoon and the southwest monsoon, there are different movements. And this has been documented through the years, which actually shows how our fisheries stocks are also connected. Because, you know, some breed in certain areas, and then the larvae are, there's spillover, and then it populates other areas in the region, and all of us are benefiting from these movements. Okay. So this marine biodiversity is very important for the ASEAN community. Because of interconnectivity among our countries, it's very important that we also work together to protect them. And the value of this is important to all of the member states. There's a species of conus, for example, that's important for pharmaceuticals. It produces a substance that is is more effective than morphine, but it's not addictive. So there are still a lot to be discovered for pharmaceuticals from our marine species. And then, of course, we have food security. You know, a lot of the fish that comes from our marine environment, of course, end up on our tables. And then it provides livelihoods for a lot of coastal communities as well. Our fisher folks depend on the fisheries and fish resources, our marine resources, for you know, for not just for selling food in the market, but also for dried fish and other products. Of course, our coastal and marine areas are also known to help us adapt and mitigate the impacts of climate change in the region. Mangroves have been known to protect certain communities against, you know, the strong impacts of typhoons. And it's not just the mangroves, but it's the layers, the diversity of ecosystems that we have. We have seagrass beds, we have tidal flats, and then we have mangroves, coral reef areas. And this diversity of ecosystems all help protect us from the full brunt of climate change. And then, of course, industries such as tourism also rely on the beauty and the aesthetic value of our marine, you know, biodiversity, our coastal areas, our beaches. They also, of course, we are also promoting this, and it's also contributes to the livelihoods again of our coastal communities. Okay. So for the fishery sector, as I said, around 80 million people in our coastal areas rely in the fishery sector. In 2017, fisheries production was valued at 50.57 billion US dollars, and back in 2017, 37% of the fisheries are exported from the Southeast Asia, from ASEAN. And this is not just the fresh fish, but also the fishery products as well, dried fish, processed products. Okay, marine turtles. As I said, we have 6 of the 7 species of marine turtles. Recently, there was a study on the value of the economic value, total economic value of marine turtles. For one turtle, this was done in the Philippines, 16,000 US dollars is for the ecological role of marine turtles per turtle, that's per turtle. The tourism value of one turtle is 69,000 US dollars. So the entire economic non-use value of marine turtles would be 85,000 US dollars. Now, if the estimated population of marine turtles, like in the Philippines, is more than 7,000 US dollars, the estimated non-use value would be around 51 to 56 million, between 51 to 56 million US dollars. And that's just for the Philippines. We have not yet an estimate, as far as I know, of the other populations of marine turtles in the region. Oh, and the photo there is not in the Philippines, but it's in Vietnam. It's in Con Dao. It's one of our ASEAN heritage parks, and they earn revenue from turtle watching during the turtle season. And some tourists are there waiting for the proper time for the egg laying of a female turtle. Birding, of course, as I mentioned, we're migratory. We're a part of the East Asian Flyway area. We're a migration range of very important coastal and marine birds, migratory birds. In 2019, Malaysia launched a birding site, which is expected to generate for tourist revenue 7.8 million US dollars. So these are just some examples of what our rich coastal and marine areas in ASEAN are, how they are valuable to our communities and to our countries in the region. So birding is possibly, one thing that we have not actually fully harnessed at this time. According to our clearinghouse mechanism, we have more than 2,600 species of birds in the ASEAN, and 1/5 of the total avian species are found in our region. And during the migratory season for birds, that brings in more tourists to do birding and do bird photography in our region. Okay. However, all of these benefits are being threatened because of marine debris. This photo is an actual photo taken by my friend somewhere in south of Metro Manila. Okay. So this is fairly recent because, as you can see, you could already see a face mask that's part of the marine debris. Okay. And this is also an actual photo where marine turtle, and was taken by my friend, also in the same area, of a marine turtle trying to reach for a plastic bag for food. Because, as you know, that one of the diets of marine turtles is jellyfish, and some jellyfish, some plastics would look like jellyfish, and they would feed on this. Okay, and this is also a photo of some of the migratory birds. So we've seen, actual photos of the marine turtles, and this is an actual photo of some of the migratory birds that are watering and feeding on some wetland areas where there are already trash around. And unfortunately, and this is within Southeast Asia, and unfortunately, sometimes this would cause a lot of mortalities for our migratory species, our coastal and marine birds. So there's also impact of marine debris to the region's coastal and marine ecosystems. If there's a lot, the trash has already proven to, of course, block waterways and cause flooding in the communities. It also, the mangroves, they're natural barriers against plastics because they catch them first before we are able, and then, before they are able to reach the mainland. And then, we can still be able to clean them up. However, if there's too much, it smothers the natural ecosystem. It smothers the mangroves, it smothers the corals, and therefore, it affects the integrity of the natural ecosystems. Right, and of course, there's microplastics. And these are, if you're, the plastics have been known to break down into smaller pieces. So not, what they call the biodegradable plastics are actually sometimes not compostable. And so the small parts, the microplastics, get into the systems of smaller organisms, and then the cumulative effect, of course, would eventually the smaller species would be eaten by the larger fish, and then it goes to our systems, and affects our health. And one study that we found published already is that some of these microplastics have been found in some isolated beach in Thailand. And perhaps later, some of my co-presenters will be able to talk more about this. But recently in Manila, where our headquarters are located in the Philippines, they also found microplastics in the air already. Okay. So, so that's how far-reaching the impacts of marine debris, marine plastics in the region is at this time. Okay, right. So there's the ecological impact, which of course redounds to environmental impact, and then which redounds to economic impacts as well. Okay, so what's our response to reducing marine debris? We had the conference on reducing marine debris in 2017 here in Thailand, which eventually adopted the Bangkok Declaration on Combating Marine Debris. So that's an ASEAN initiative. Okay, so the work plan includes policy support, research, public awareness, and private sector engagement. And then also all the 10 countries in the ASEAN are subscribed to the Convention on Biological Diversity. So we have the COP recently, which adopted the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Framework. And the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity supports the ASEAN member states in complying with these international and regional agreements. We support the achievement, the ASEAN member states in achieving the targets that are related to marine and coastal ecosystems under the KMGBF. We also have cooperation with our development partners, like in this case with Norway. We had identified certain gaps on protection, on what are the capacity gaps of the ASEAN member states in addressing marine debris. We also have the ASEAN Heritage Parks, which protects certain important marine areas. 10 marine AHPs, we protect certain special, biodiversity areas, marine biodiversity protected areas in the region. We also have our Oceans Are Fitter Without Litter, communications, research and development, and we support marine research as well. In this case, we had underwater visual survey of sharks to be able to see how certain threats are impacting certain marine populations. And then we engage multiple stakeholders in conducting coastal cleanups. Here we have the Miss Earth, who participated in our coastal cleanup as well. And we recognize champions in combating marine debris. This is Dr. Apple Shavanovich of Thailand. She has recently been recognized as one ASEAN Biodiversity Heroes, and her contribution to addressing marine threats and marine pressures is known throughout ASEAN. Okay, we also provide a platform for knowledge exchange on marine conservation. And of course, we have been discussing earlier about not one sector can do this by himself. We need a whole of community, whole of society approach. We need the private sector, academe, IPLCs, youth, women and girls, and governments. So a whole of society approach is necessary to address marine debris issue and other biodiversity challenges. Now, as we know that our biodiversity, we're rich in biodiversity in ASEAN, and it's important to be able to work together to address all of these threats to make ASEAN more resilient against the impacts of climate change and other current global challenges. So thank you very much. # we are ASEAN Biodiversity. And thank you for this opportunity to speak before you today. And we look forward to cooperating more closely with ASEAN this year and next year and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Teresa Mundita S. Lim, the Executive Director, ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. As you can see, the marine debris pollution is truly a global concern. Addressing this issue will help curb the adverse impacts on the environment, as well as addresses a wide range of implications towards economics and societies. Now come to our next speaker. We are honored to have Assistant Professor Dr. Thorn Thamrong Nawasawat, Department of Marine Science, Faculty of Fisheries, Kasetsart University. So please welcome Dr. Thorn on the stage with a topic of a silver lining of oceanic biodiversity. เรียนเชิญค่ะ
ก็อย่างแรกสุดนะฮะก็สวัสดีครับนะฮะสำหรับทุกท่านนะฮะขอพูดภาษาไทยก่อนเพราะว่าพอดีเป็นคนไทยนะฮะก็เลยขอสวัสดีเป็นภาษาไทยก่อนนะครับแล้วก็ดีใจนะฮะที่ได้มีโอกาสมาพูดวันนี้นะฮะขอบคุณผู้จัดด้วยนะครับของงาน SX ทั้งหมดซึ่งจริงๆก็จัดมา3 ปีแล้วนะฮะผมก็มาร่วมทุกปีนะครับซึ่งก็หวังว่าจะจัดต่อไปอีกสัก20 ปีแล้วกันนะฮะ so I'm just speak in Thai first because I'm Thai. Okay, we are in Bangkok also. We are not in Manila. So we have to talk to people in Thai first. But anyway, I will give my presentation, which is will be very short because my wife called me already to buy something. They have a very good food store, more than 200 restaurant together in the lower ground. So I think that if you have a chance after finish your speak, you go down and buy some food. We are #1 city in the world for street food. But anyway, we come back to what I'm talking about. We are talking about marine debris, and I'm working I am the professor in Kasetsart University and working for anything about the sea. I'm working for more than 30 years, and what we are trying to talking today is marine debris, and I'm also the chairman of the marine endangered species of Thailand for more than 10 years. What about dolphin, turtle? I see it all, and it already dead, pass away, go to heaven. But so as a chairman for the working group, they have only one working group in Thailand. I'm a chairman for 12 years, and will be because nobody would like to be a chairman, only myself. I don't know why. But we are talking about marine debris. There are a lot of marine debris in Thailand. This is a photo I took a photo and show. There are a lot more than that. If you think this state is quite big, I'm a diver for more than almost 40 years. I dive in the islands in Pattaya, and I see the beach. I would like, it's a very white, clean beach. Nobody there. I would like to get some relax, enjoy life. So I swim to the beach and come on the beach. Nobody there. Nobody is the beach. Is the island inside the Navy area. So it's not a tourism area. It's an isolated island. But when I come out on the beach, what I see is something like that. I count it myself for more than 200 meters along the way through the beach. It look like this all the way. All is a pet bottle, and it's very sad that it can be recycled, but it end up on the beach like that. So this, I have only a few slides, but I have to show you something. This is some. Okay, I just walk and show you. This is our graph. There are a lot of graphs. You can see that this is in Thai. Sorry, so it's in Thai. We show you in the number of our garbage on the top. In last year we have 11.6 million ton. 11.6 million ton. In the upper graph, and you can see that every year is quite the same. It's not decreasing. It look like the same for everything, and even for the marine debris along the seashore, the province in the seashore, there are a lot and a lot more. So if you would like to see only one graph, this is a graph you should see. This is the number of marine debris in Thailand that we calculate from all the garbage in Thailand. So you can see that it's quite straight, no reduce. At the moment, we expect around 30,000 tons of marine debris for this year. So we have a lot of problem. It's in Thai again, but anyway, you can see this is a river around Thailand. We are in Bangkok. น้องแบตหมดแต่ยังไงก็ตามนะฮะ We are in Bangkok, so you can see เจ้าพระยา river. Now we are in Bangkok. We have a lot. We have 4 main river around us. We have บางปะกงเจ้าพระยาท่าจีนแม่กลอง speak in Thai. So every year we calculate the marine, the debris, garbage that go along the river. We have a net for the research. Every year we do the research using that net, and when we calculate all the garbage along the our 4 main river to check out that do we doing something good or doing something better way or something. But what we found that is no. We try, but it's not something. It's like a greenhouse gas. We can say that we are try really hard, but it's come up like that. It's something like that, similar garbage, marine debris, and that is quite similar. So we have a lot of problem here. As I told you, for the marine endangered species, we have a lot of unit. Now, what we doing very well in Thailand is to help for the emergency marine endangered species. We have a lot of unit, a lot of marine endangered hospital itself. We have 2 of them. We have a lot of doctor, veterinarian, and everything. And we use X-ray or everything. We have more around 2 turtles a day that standing because of marine debris too. And if we X-ray, more than 60% of marine turtle that's standing in Thailand right now, they have something in the stomach. This is an X-ray. So you can see that there are a lot of problems with marine turtle, and it keep rising and rising for the number. This is the graph that show you for the sample size and the number of turtle that have a problem with marine debris or some plastic or something. You can see from 2560 is 6 years ago. Sorry, the number is years in Thai, but anyway, you can see that it's more and more and more. So it's rising up. So if you would like to speak in information or data or research data, not only the photo picture, you can say that now we are in S curve of marine debris and S curve of turtle that hurt because we don't care about our plastic bag, something like that, and it will be more and more and more. So this is just information for a lot of students here. There are a lot of students listen to me, to ours. So to us. So we have microplastic. Microplastic can separate in two parts. We have primary microplastic, like a microbead or everything, something that for your face or your toothpaste. But now in Thailand, we ban that. What we have a problem is a secondary microplastic, the microplastic that come from other plastic and goes smaller and smaller. Something like from your clothes, there are a lot of clothes from microplastic. We have other thing, film and other thing in the foam, microbead and other fragment. There are a lot of type of microplastic in Thailand. But anyway, if you are in ASEAN, you can remember that 5 years ago we have ASEAN Summit in Bangkok, and we have something like marine debris combating, some signing over there, and we are talking about some unit in that side for all ASEAN country. We are talking about some research unit about combating the marine debris. So since then I work it myself in my university. I'm the deputy dean for that for faculty of fishery. So I open it up in my university. This is combating memo, the combating marine debris. Only one, the one and only unit in Thailand. And you might be surprised that each year we do the microplastic study sample FTIR file the source more than 10,000 sample, highest in Thailand and I think the highest in ASEAN because we do it very cheap. Other laboratory can do it, but they charge you. You come here free, no problem. So I gather all the information in Thailand for that. So we have a lot and good help from and our FTIR and other unit. GC help us for that. GC is one of the sponsor for this. We can, and I hope that Thai BEP will help us some in the future. Anyway, we have a lot of working on seawater and sediment on marine life. This is all our information. If you like to share some information, to get the information for free, we are in ASEAN. Everything free, don't worry. We have more than 20 published paper at the moment, my college go to China, working on the marine debris and show them some information about all that side. The side that you can see is all the information we have about the microplastic in sediment, in fish, and also in seawater together. So we have all around. And especially we have one thing that very uncommon. We even have some sample from petroleum rig. Petroleum rig is very far. We separate in river, near shore, mid-range, and offshore, very far offshore. We have a petroleum rig that 200 kilometers from shore. So we can scan the microplastic from เจ้าพระยา River to พัทยา and go to เกาะสมุยเกาะเต่า and even go 200 kilometers out to the sea. So we can see what if you compare each other. This is what we have during the before COVID and during COVID. You can see in เจ้าพระยา River. You can see that there are a lot of microplastic come up during the COVID because we use a lot of delivery. And this is something that we calculate for microplastic. If we do petroleum concession, is a petroleum rig in the middle Gulf of Thailand. You can see in the area, but Pacific garbage, there are a lot more. Somewhere that you are working on, there are a lot more. Even there in the middle of Pacific Ocean. But this information might help you that you're working on the middle. But what about 200 kilometers from shore in the mid-range? We are working on, and we have information about that. And if you look at this graph, you can see that if you go further and further from shore, the microplastic concentration will drop down. We have a lot in เจ้าพระยา River, and we go down to smaller GBN and GBS is a petroleum rig in the middle of Gulf. So you can see that there are 20 times less in the petroleum rig. Petroleum rig ก็คือแท่นผลิตปิโตรเลียมจ้ะ So that's some information that we are show. I would like to talk to you, and what we are expect at the moment. We have a lot of problem. We have more marine debris. We cannot stop them right now. We will try to find something like a recycle or bioplastic, but each way they have a lot of obstacles, but we don't know how to overcome it. In the short term, we might success in 20 years from now or what, I don't know. But this situation is very bad. And at the moment, the endangered species, especially the sea turtle, hurt a lot from the marine debris, and the number increasing dramatically in Thailand. We can see that. And also we have more and more microplastic which might harm our health and especially our younger generation health, and we don't know what to do with them. We only, the scientists like myself, can only report to youว่า last year is better than this year, and this year will be better than the next year. Because our situation is something like that. And if we don't do anything, together with the global warming and marine debris and a lot of microplastic, our earth might not be the good one as the slogan for that. So we hope that someday it should be better. Even I myself might not see it because it will not be better in 5 years or 10 years. It might be better after I bye-bye this earth, but I will hope that it should be better because our children never did anything wrong. Only our generation make the world like this. So we have to solve all the problem before we pass away. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assistant Professor Dr. Thorn Thamrong Nawasawat. So today is the day that we have to start solving the problem instead of waiting. Thank you so much for sharing us those wonderful information. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have Mr. Adam Brennan, Chief Sustainability Officer, Thai Union Group. Please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Adam on a stage. Mr. Adam will come up with the topic of life below water.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think we've just heard from the previous speakers on the scale of the challenge related to marine debris and ocean plastics. But within that, there was also a specific call out on how to drive solutions and the role that the private sector needs to play in providing some of those solutions alongside some of the policymakers and our global governments. And so what I want to do over the next 10-15 minutes or so is talk you through Thai Union's plan on how we plan to tackle the issue of marine debris. Now, first of all, why am I here? Thai Union are one of the largest seafood companies in the world. And what that means is that we are inherently reliant on the status and health of the world's oceans. Our future depends on it. So we have a responsibility, we have an accountability to make sure that we are acting as stewards and that we are leading by example and showing the role that the private sector can undertake. But we are also acknowledging that we are contributing to the problem. Okay, we've spoken a lot over the last 20-30 minutes or so around the role of marine debris originating from land. Okay, but as a seafood company, our supply chain also contributes to ocean plastics and marine debris in the form of ocean-based. All right, and that really comes in the form of what we call ghost gear. Okay, and ghost gear are things like fishing nets, they are things like fishing aggregating devices, which can sometimes be lost at sea. Okay, so over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to talk you through our new strategy that we just introduced a couple of months ago, and ocean plastics is one of those things that we aim to tackle. So first off, sustainability is not new for Thai Union. We introduced our first sea change strategy back in 2016, and we've really been focusing on two issues to date. One has been related to social and labour, and the other has been related to creating responsible fisheries. And responsible fisheries is extremely important because that helps to safeguard and protect the biodiversity in those fisheries, right? But we are also creating an independent framework that makes sure that those vessels are operating responsibly. And there are issues related to ghost gear within that as well. So those are some of the things that we've been working on to date. And over the last number of years, we've had a lot of positive response in terms of the progress that we've been making in these two areas. But now as we pivot towards 2030, we started to ask ourselves, what are some of the additional challenges that we should be focused on as one of the world's largest seafood companies? How can we make sure that we are addressing all of our holistic social and environmental impacts? And so that's what we aim to do with our 2030 strategy. Our 2030 strategy is our sustainability plan to deliver unified solutions for both people and planet. And we heard from the speaker previously just how many people are reliant on the fishery sector for their well-being. Okay, so the importance of connecting people and planet is extremely important to us. Before I take you through the strategy, it's also critical that the private sector are investing in change. They're investing in the impact that needs to be generated. And so when we announced our new strategy, it also came with a significant financial investment. And that investment is $200 million that Thai Union will be investing in our sustainability strategy over the next number of years. And this is the equivalent of our entire net profit from last year. So it shows you just how serious Thai Union are taking its sustainability program and the importance that it has for our future. So, I've mentioned the importance of people and planet. Under these two thematic themes are 5 intended future outcomes. The first is around human rights and labor. Okay, I'm not going to focus that much in this discussion on that topic. The next is around health and wellness, climate change, biodiversity, and circularity. Obviously, I'm going to focus mostly on what we want to be doing to protect and safeguard biodiversity and also help to drive a circular economy as well. So under these 5 future outcomes are 11 interconnected commitments and goals. And I've highlighted in red those that actually connect in with this conversation. Okay, marine debris and ocean plastics. So what I'm going to do over the next few minutes is just take you through these commitments and make sure it's clear how exactly these are part of the solution in combating marine debris. So the first is on responsible wild-caught seafood. Thai Union, as I mentioned, are one of the largest seafood producers in the world. One of our biggest product portfolios is around tuna. So under this commitment, we will be driving 100% of our tuna to be responsibly sourced by 2025. And as I mentioned in the introduction, this framework that we've put in place to ensure the tuna that we are sourcing from a responsible fishery have safeguards in place that help to reduce the loss of ghost gear from the vessels that are operating in that fishery. Okay, so our drive in moving these fisheries towards more sustainable practices is having a positive impact. And that comes in the form, as I mentioned earlier, ghost gear. Okay, what happens when gear is lost? How do we track it? How do we retrieve it? We're looking at issues like biodegradable fish gear as well. Okay, all of that is part of this commitment to hopefully mitigate the loss of gear in the first place. Then obviously one of the key commitments as part of this discussion is then specifically around ocean plastics. Okay, so by 2030, we want to divert 1,500 tons of ocean plastics from our waterways and oceans. Okay, but there are really 3 focuses that we're going to be looking at between now and 2030. The first is around avoiding and mitigating. What can we do to help avoid the loss in the first place? Now, because we have so much focus on creating responsible fisheries, very, very rarely is the gear lost intentionally. Okay, so what we've done is we spent a huge amount of time working with the Global Ghost Gear Initiative. They are an NGO that is out in our supply chain, training up the fishers, training up the captain, training up the suppliers on how to minimize the loss of gear. This partnership with the Global Ghost Gear Initiative will continue to be expanded and deployed across our global supply chain to help avoid and mitigate the loss of ghost gear as we move forwards. But we also acknowledge that we need to play an active part in the removal. As I said, we are reliant on the health of our world's oceans. And so we want to be working with partners like you'll hear later, with solutions like you'll hear from one of the next speakers, on interceptors in waterways, on active removal from the world's oceans to make sure again that we're safeguarding this critical ecosystem as we move forwards. Then I'm looking at our direct contribution, and this is land-based sources of plastics. We have 2 commitments related to Thai Union's business. We have a branded part of Thai Union that we are directly responsible and accountable for. So we want 100% of our branded packaging to be sustainable by 2025. And we want to be working with the world's governments. We want to be working with things like the UN Global Plastics Treaty to increase the recycling infrastructure that exists in many of the markets where Thai Union are operating. But we also have a significant private label part of the business. And here we want to be advocating for our customers to make more responsible and sustainable decisions when it comes to the packaging that they are selecting for their own products. And then lastly is best-in-class manufacturing. So Thai Union operates a global network of processing facilities around the world. Manufacturing, in addition to consumer waste, can also be a source of marine debris. And we want all of our major processing factories around the world to be completely closed loop by 2030. This means zero wastewater, zero food loss, and zero waste to landfill. And we hope that through these three commitments, driving responsible fisheries, avoiding and mitigating the loss of ghost gear at sea, playing an active role in the removal of ocean plastics, coupled with working on our own branded packaging solutions, we are helping to play a role in identifying what solutions look like from the private sector as it relates to marine debris. But I think we've also heard from one of the previous speakers that it cannot only be one segment of society. We've all got to work together holistically to drive the change at the scale that's needed. We heard from the professor earlier that we see very much a stagnant progress over the last number of years, specifically in Thailand, and sometimes an increase. So how can we begin to reverse those trends? And so we really need to activate all stakeholders that are reliant on the health of the world's oceans to play a role in driving these solutions at scale. So we will be working with our competitors on a pre-competitive basis to drive best practices in the wild caught supply chain to again help minimize the loss of ghost gear. We're going to be working with the communities and having community-based projects so that when gear is lost, it is tracked and it can be successfully retrieved before it has a significant impact on the local biodiversity. We're going to be working with our investors and with our NGOs to help level up the entire industry. At Thai Union, we're happy to lead the way in showing what can be done. We also are very transparent and open around the challenges that we have with some of the commitments that we're setting out to achieve. So it is only together are we going to drive the level of change which is needed to successfully reverse the trends and really tackle the issue of ocean debris and safeguard the future of our world's oceans. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adam Brennan, and thank you very much for the sustainability plan to help reshape the seafood industry with the solutions for people and planet. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored by Mr. Renaud Moyet, UNDP Resident Representative to Thailand. So please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Renaud. He's coming with the topic of Ocean Promise, the commitment for tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Sawadee Krap. Very good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be again on the stage. Thank you very much, ASEAN, for inviting UNDP to join you here and to share not only our perspective, but also our commitment as a UN organization on the very challenging, as we have seen, yet very urgent priority that the quality of our ocean represents for ourselves as inhabitants of this planet, but also very importantly for the planet itself, because we all know the percentage of water that is covering this planet. It's way more than the land on which we stand. So I'm going to share with you how, as an organization, we have equipped ourselves with a number of principles, a number of visions, and a number of targets that we aim to achieve between now and 2030. You hear a lot about 2030 because, as I hope you know, this is the time frame that the UN and the member states have agreed to work upon on those famous Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals that many of us are wearing here in the form of this SDG wheel with various objectives. And the key one that is at the heart of our discussion, of course, is SDG 14. But as I will try to demonstrate, without working on all the SDGs, it is going to be very difficult to achieve any of them separately, right? So let's go through a few, if this works. Yes, it does. So let's put the vision out there and then unpack it so that we all understand. And I think what is very important today, and this conference I think has really put a lot of light on it, is how, in the past you would have those who think that we need to protect the planet, and then those who think that we need to provide jobs and focus on economic growth. And for decades, we were looking at a confrontational relationship between those two. And I think slowly we all realized that there cannot be any trade-offs between the two. Right? Nobody in this room, despite our good intent, will be willing to sacrifice our quality of life, our level of consumptions. I mean, hopefully we can be a bit smarter about our consumption. But clearly we need economic growth. And I think what we have seen with the post-COVID environment is that it's so easy to go back to bad habits on the pretext that we've lost some of our economic gains, and now we need to quickly, catch up. And I think the professor was very good at articulating this, and despite efforts made before COVID on plastics in Thailand, it was completely forgotten, and the numbers were loud and clear. So this quote that you have here, which is really our overall vision, is precisely about how do we bring together, how do we converge the development of what we call the blue economy, an economy based largely on the importance of our oceans and our water systems in our economic models, with the positives, right? The objectives of ensuring food security, the objective of reducing poverty, of course looking at the gender equality of all this, and the overall equality of all human beings. So it stems in a way from this very important piece. So I was referring to SDG 14 because we use this as a kind of a platform, right? But again, if we start looking at the various dimensions, and I think the three previous speakers have articulated already this well, it's not just a one siloed approach that's going to take us to a sustainable solution. So there are many different elements that we take into consideration. Adam from Thai Union has mentioned the fisheries sectors, and thank you, Adam, for also highlighting the social aspects of it, the social dimensions, which are absolutely fundamental. But whether it is the economic activities around the oceans, or more the biodiversity conservation element, there is no, one is more important than the other. Right? It's really a holistic approach that we need to approach and work around. Now, if we zoom in on Thailand, and I'm not going to replace the professor, I'm not going to be able to speak in Thai like he did, but just if we think of those three elements, right? And what is true about Thailand, unfortunately, is true about a lot of the Southeast Asian countries and the ASEAN countries that Monita, in the first speaker, has spoken. This is really where the red, even dark red, purple alarm bells are ringing when it comes to marine plastic, and I'm sure our friends from Ocean Cleanup will tell us, because we are under the horrible shadows of this Pacific patch, and I'm sure you'll speak to it, that is actually not so far, and unfortunately a strong reminder of where we are at. And if we look at despite again efforts and policies and increasingly good habits of consumers, we're still very far off what we should do in terms of the famous 3 R's, including the recycling one at the end. And the numbers, speaks to themselves, and the further you go into where we should be going, the lower the numbers are. So a lot of room for improvement, and this is why it's also very encouraging that the younger generation, take a very proactive and sometimes even aggressive approach to this, because they realize that it's really about their ecosystems that is threatened compared to the ones of the previous generations. Now, talking about the policies, if we look at what the government is doing, and they're not just sitting there, their arms crossed. There is in Thailand, I think, a strong appreciation of the challenge and the urgency to take action, and that is summarized in this action plan, the Thailand's Plastic Waste Management Action Plan. We're on the phase 2 right now. And interestingly, and I think a good lesson also for many of the countries, there is a public-private partnership on plastic pollution, right? So an understanding that, like Mundita said when she was finishing her presentation, one actor alone, irrespective of how important a role he or she plays, alone can address this. So the criticality of partnerships and ensuring that both private and public entities are going to be aligned to achieve this. And these are the targets that this action plan has put forward. So, you know, again, ambitious, but absolutely critical to get away. And you can see that this is not just a one-off. The smaller picture on the side shows that, you know, there is a kind of a medium to long-term strategy also of the government on this issue. I hope this is not, no, in the back it's bigger because it's a bit small for me up there. But let me now try to unpack what for UNDP has been motivating us, and what we see, and not only in the issue of plastics and marine debris, but in all the development narrative, the importance of coming with a story with, in a way, different chapters, right? But really a story to underline again the systemic approach that we need to have when we're trying to find long-term solutions. So the first one, we've talked a lot about it, is on the plastics, right? And this necessity to look at the circularity model of being able to simply at the end of the day, you know, it always fascinates me when I hear long discussions about bad and good plastics, right? There's no such thing as good plastics. All plastics are bad. The problem is that we're so used to it that we don't want to give it up. So we try to attenuate the negative impact of the plastic that we use. The second one is where, as the UN organization, we really situate ourselves and we bring, you know, the strongest value, and that's the normative aspects. Again, Mundita has spoken of the Bangkok Declaration, for example, for ASEAN. But Adam has just alluded to it when he was presenting it. There is now a decision, and that's a very important step at the global level, for a plastic treaty. And so it's still in the making, as you probably have heard, but for us it's a very important milestone, because even if for the moment we can say, yes, this is just, you know, commitments, but to get 193 countries to commit to something as important as the way that plastics in a way has been in the center of our consumers' habits, you know, is a very important one. And right now, countries are positioning themselves. Now, to be honest, Thailand, it won't be easy, right? Because on one side, we have seen that it is very severely affected by marine debris and plastic pollution, but we also know that on the other side, the plastic industry is also big, right? And so there's a lot of economic investments and assets that are dedicated towards plastic. So there will need to be a very thorough reflection and rethinking about how we're going to transition out for those industries without, you know, economic and social implications that would scare a lot of the decision makers. Right? So clearly an important step, but something that will be very complicated. I'm going to jump straight to the fourth one because that's one of the key ones for me, and that's the necessity to look at the issue, again, from a multiplicity of standpoints, right? And not silo and put the issues in a separate way, otherwise we won't find solutions. Marine protected areas, that goes back to the first presenter on the necessity to link it to the broader biodiversity preservation agenda. And here again, there's the COP15 in Kunming with the new global framework for biodiversity conservation, which is a very important document, a large commitment. But once you have the marine protected areas, you know, there is a tendency to, again, dissociate nature for the sake of nature, and both the human aspects, meaning the population that live in those ecosystems, but also the economic value of those ecosystems. Right? And we see, again, to refer back to the Thai context, a lot of confrontational relationships, especially with indigenous people or ethnic minorities, as we call them here, who live in and off those ecosystems, and how do we reconcile a human agenda, a rights-based human agenda, with the preservation mandate that those marine protected areas or national parks bring together. 6 we've talked about already, the concept of the blue economy, again this articulation of both angles. And the 7th one, again, it's to put, it goes back to Adam's point, to put this in the perspective of the broader supply chain, right? So how do we look at the various determinants of the marine debris issue and appreciate the ins and outs, in a way, of the issue. So to zoom in on the ocean promise, this is how we've called it in UNDP, right? Some initial results that we have seen, I'll leave yourself to read it, but whether it's, in terms of investments, of efforts that our network of 130 plus countries around the world have already achieved, but also importantly, the way that we articulate this in the broader sustainable development agenda, right? And the various linkages that we offer to it. There's an example here of the Black Sea, another example that you may have seen in the news, and if you have not, I would invite you to look for it, is what happened on the coast of Yemen. Yemen, a country that is currently at war and has been at war for many years, unfortunately. And in the middle of this conflict, this gigantic oil tanker that has been abandoned, right? And with a huge, very high likeliness that with the environment and the interference of Mother Nature, at some point there's going to be leakages, right? And if this was going to happen, obviously it would be a terrible, decades-long efforts to salvage it, and super, super costly. But unfortunately, partly because it's a country at war, no one wants to get involved, right? So UNDP specifically, supported by the other UN agencies and our member states, we did what we felt was the only way to do it, we bought the tanker. Right? We became owner of this tanker, obviously not in the idea of making profit out of it, but because it gave us, the ownership and therefore the control of how we were going to be able to salvage it. And it took months to find technological solutions, but just about a month ago, I think, we were able to pump out all the oil that was in this tanker. It's a fascinating story, but it shows also that sometimes, especially in situations of conflict, there are very, very few actors that have the mandate and the legal status in order to be able to operate and come at the rescue, in this case, of the ocean and the ecosystem around Yemen. So the schematic there is what I want to draw your attention in, because again, it's going to be one of my key messages for you this afternoon, is the necessity to look at it from a holistic, systemic way. Right? And really stop looking at various chapters independently. And whether you put blue economy or something else at the matter, in the center, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is this understanding. And here again, we have a lot of examples. The one I want to draw your attention to is the third one, the importance of SIDS. Because for them, it's not just the right thing to do. It's a matter of existing or disappearing from this planet, right? SID stands for Small Island Development States. Right, so we're talking here about the Tuvalus, about the Caribbean countries, about some of the islands in the Indian Ocean. So these are islands that are totally relying on the quality of the ocean and the ecosystem around the ocean for their mere survival. Not only because of the ecosystem, but again, because of how their populations totally rely on the quality of the ocean for their development. And we have seen, it goes very far. You probably have heard that because of the projections that we know in terms of population, we are now creating in the world of our, the crypto this, crypto that, populations that belong to a country that has ceased to exist. And here I refer to what we call the climate refugees. So populations that are migrating today because they know that inevitably in a number of decades, their countries will be underwater. And as the professor said, people of my generation probably won't see long-term solutions. The younger generation at the back maybe will, hopefully. But this is how serious it gets for some of the member states of the UN out there. So again, numbers here, no need to remember them all, but I think we want to illustrate what we're talking about. The two ones that we want to be held accountable to as an organization is this idea of mobilizing $1 billion as resources for action and coming up with about 100 innovations on solutions for marine, right? So what we're calling for is a massive coalition of like-minded partners in order to identify, given the various contexts that we operate around the world, some innovative ways of addressing this. One of them is going to be presented in a minute by the next presenter, and in a way I'm using this as a bridge to now sum up and conclude by leaving with you 3 key points that are underpinning the ocean promise of UNDP. One is a systemic, holistic, comprehensive approach, understanding the ins and outs and the interlinkages between the issues. Second, the need for partnerships. No one alone will fix this. Right? So we need not only collaboration between governments, this is what we are for, but we need also the strong involvement of partners like Thai Union, and I think, Adam, I was extremely impressed, and I'll definitely come for more discussions bilaterally, and I think so will Mondita. We really want to harness this understanding, increasing understanding, and sizable investments now that the private sector is committing in doing, because they know that inevitably it's their own survival as business entities that is at stake if they rely so heavily on the ecosystem. But the third one, and this is an important one, those partnerships cannot be exclusive. Right? Those partnerships needs to be absolutely inclusive. What I mean by that, and here I'm going and circling, filling up the circle, is the concept of leaving no one behind. Right? So as we identify partnerships, those populations, especially the most vulnerable population, I'm referring, for example, in Thailand to the Chao Lei population, the sea gypsies as we call them in English, those indigenous groups that live in the marine ecosystem of the south of Thailand. You find them also in Myanmar and in parts of Indonesia. Those populations are first victims. Their whole life and their whole approach to life depends on the quality of the marine ecosystems. We cannot just leave them there and just hope that their situation will improve by decisions that are being taken without them involved. Right? So those partnerships need to be inclusive. We need to make space and give voice to the voiceless, to those populations, so that they can also not only share their aspirations and what they need to see happen, but also share with us those innovative solutions that we can take on board and linked to investment capacities. Right? Systemic, partnerships, and inclusion. If you only remember 3 things, these are the things that I would like you to remember from this afternoon. And finally, to finish with something that I hope will also trigger some thinking. Going back to numbers and to data, we estimate that every minute there's an extra 1 million plastic bottle that is being purchased around the world. 1 minute, 1 million plastic bottles. I have spoken to you for just over 10 minutes. That's 10 million extra bottles that were put out there. What happens to them is up to us. Thank you.
A round of applause for Mr. Renault. Thank you for sharing with us UNDP's Ocean Promise. Next, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Stephen Ballman, Director, Asia Rivers, the Ocean Cleanup. So please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Stephen Ballman. The topic is the lesson learned from Ocean Cleanup.
Good afternoon. Sawadee Krap. I will do it in English, although we are in Thailand. Sorry. I'm asked to talk about the challenges and the learnings that Ocean Cleanup experienced in the previous years in oceans, but also in rivers, particularly in Thailand. I'd like to dig a little bit deeper. I think we are at the largest cleanup in history. previous speakers already addressed this, and I think it's quite clear that the cleanup is the biggest in front of us. The ocean cleanup has a very simple mission. We want to rid the oceans of plastic. It's very crisp and clear, but the challenge is vast and super large. This picture says it all. This is what's driving us, this is what's driving me, and this is what most of you in the room should drive as well, or is driving. The ocean cleanup has a dual strategy. We want to clean up what is already there for decades or generations, and we want to stop plastic from reaching that oceans by closing off the rivers. It sounds easier than it is because you cannot just close off a river, especially Chao Phraya River, you cannot just do that. But I will show you in a few slides how we go about that. So oceans, clean up what's there, and stop plastic from reaching that oceans by closing off rivers. But not before we have a thorough study done on environmental impact. The whole existence of the ocean cleanup is to protect marine life, the species. So we spent a lot of time and money, brains, and people on understanding the impact on environment. We will continue doing this. Every day we collect more data because we are out there in the ocean, we are out there in rivers, so this is an ongoing process. Many people are involved. Understanding the problem is a key element of what we do. You can try to solve a problem without really understanding the problem, but you will waste a lot of dollars in euros or bahts. So we will dive into the problem the deepest that we can get. We use cameras, trawlers, data from other sources, satellites, planes, to make sure that we have a crisp idea of what we are trying to solve to cater the solution to the problem that we have found. So oceans, quickly. As I mentioned, ocean and rivers is two separate strategies, aiming for the same, less plastic in oceans. But I will touch upon oceans quickly. I regret that I took out a few slides in favor of time because we have beautiful videos about this, but I want to show you a few slides anyway. On the screen you can see a big U shape and two ships. This is pulled through the Great Pacific Garbage Patch in the area between Hawaii and San Francisco. It's as big as 3 times the size of Thailand. It's not a big soup, as people might think. It is an area where plastic is scattered around. And we will pull this giant U-shape, almost 2 kilometers long, through that GPGP. There's 5 JRAs on Earth. The biggest one is the GPGP between Hawaii and San Francisco. We have a few prototypes because we failed a lot, we learned a lot, we improved a lot, and we had a few systems. Now we are at system 3. I don't know why, but we have nicknames for those. And this is Josh. You can see an animation of 2 ships pulling a big U shape through the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and accumulated plastic in a retention zone. I will quickly show you a video that is recorded not that long ago, what happens if we pull that on board of one of those ships. It is trip number 16. We are now at trip 17. And to the previous speakers, yes, there is quite some fishing gear. But there is also buckets and buoys. It is stunning what comes down. And we see this now almost on a weekly basis because we are heading in the right direction in solving this problem out there where nobody can see it, 1,500 miles outside the coast of the United States. This is data, and this is reality that I didn't want to hold you from. This is a graph that shows how successful we are in doing this. We have various data points where you could be a little bit depressed, right? We went out there, we failed. We went back, we succeeded. We went out there, we failed. Because of weather conditions, you know, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is a beast. It's big, it's rough terrain. If you want to clean it up, you need to be persistent. And we did. So the good news is, by failing and learning, you know how to improve. Slowly but surely, this graph is going up and up and up. So very recently, literally last week, I got the data in that we have found ways to increase the catch to 45,000 kilos per trip, which is great news because we then only have to repeat it 400 or 500 times, and then the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is cleaned. Kudos to the team. Rivers. The second strategy of the ocean cleanup is making sure that no more plastic will reach the oceans. You can clean up the oceans until you retire if you do not close off rivers. The plastic will wash down on beaches, the beautiful islands, and the riverbanks. So what we have done is let's try to create a machine that can close off rivers. In Biona Creek, Los Angeles, the United States, we have this machine, the 007, deployed last year. And it's literally closing off that river. You cannot do that in every river, but this river we could. And it's accumulating plastic in front of the interceptor original. Inside there is a conveying belt, and it takes up the plastic into dumpsters inside the interceptor. Rivers are unfortunately arteries of plastic that goes into the ocean. You see a few pictures behind me and our CEO, and we dove into this. It's not only the artery of plastic, it's also the artery of economies and cultures, like the Chao Phraya. So I will dive into Chao Phraya in a second, not literally, but in the data side, and I will take you through a few data points why we prioritized that river as well. We built a river model, so we created a model to model and predict the amount of emission from rivers globally. And from that model, we could distill 1,000 rivers, covering 80% of the total problem. This is good news, because you only have to clean 1,000 rivers to catch up to 80% of the problem. But on the other hand, it is 1,000 rivers. That's quite some work. It helped us set priorities, where to start first. You see the bubbles lighting up on your screen. The higher or the bigger the bubble is, the likelihood that this river is polluting most is very likely. On the screen you can see what we did with that knowledge, with that priority tool. So on the left-hand side you can see the system 003 that sits in the ocean to clean the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. From left to right, we have deployed in Biona Creek, Los Angeles, Guatemala, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, all the way to the east, and all the way to the area where we are now in. We use different technologies because every river is different. You can see the interceptor in the left-hand corner. This is also the device that we will put in the Chao Phraya very soon. You see the barrier on the right-hand corner that we placed in Jamaica, the tender to scoop out everything that we have captured in that barrier. You see a guard to guard the plastic towards a certain point without harming mangroves. And you see the latest barricade. The barricade is a special tool because it is so strong, it could withhold big washdowns in Guatemala. Hundreds of trucks we now scooped out of the Guatemala River, and it's working. The barrier was not strong enough. The barricade, a very heavy-duty screen in the middle of a very fast-flowing river, could withstand that flow. Diving into Asia quickly, we have deployed in Indonesia an interceptor, Malaysia, Vietnam, and soon we hope to announce that we are good to deploy in Bangkok, Chao Phraya, and Indonesia. Diving Thailand. Bangkok is also a priority for us. Previous speakers already mentioned it. Unfortunately, Bangkok has a high emission into the Gulf of Thailand, into the oceans as well. So we prioritized Chao Phraya on our priority list quite high. We started to work on this 4 years ago. COVID was not helpful, but it was also something we really had to do a really good job, so it took a little bit longer to get to a solution that we now have in place. You can call it lessons learned. We like to talk about key success factors, and I can tell you what we do is not done by nobody. You cannot have a blueprint. You say, okay, just copy paste this solution. No, we're going to anchor a floating garbage truck in Chao Phraya. That is unprecedented, and it's super complex because Chao Phraya is the artery of the economy of Thailand, larger portions of Southeast Asia, but it's also culturally a very important river. So after a lot of thinking, after a lot of discussions with all the involved institutes and authorities, we came to the conclusion that we have to think a little bit bigger. We have to accept that the interceptor cannot be in the Chao Phraya and close it off. You need to put it maybe in a corner of the river to make sure that you can catch as much as possible while you protect the economic value of the Chao Phraya and the cultural value that it has. By doing so, we hope to iterate and learn to improve the impact that we have on this particular river. Success factors, well, it goes all from left to right. We had great support from the Marine Department, Monterey, DMCR, the Pollution Control Department. It's all there. Everybody is helping us because everybody understands that we are past the point to lay back. And I think we feel very supported by everyone involved. The right policies, the right tone, the right support is accelerating us now because we have great authorities behind us. This creates extra complexity because so many authorities are involved and engaged, but that's not a problem. I think we have we found a good way in collaborating, and we elevated the whole strategy that we had to a river program, if you will, because placing an interceptor is not the only thing we can do in Chao Phraya. We separated a few levels. Level 1, the interceptor, as I showed, is done. It sits in the harbor of the Azimar shipyard at the end of the Chao Phraya River, at the river mouth. It's on the shipyard. It's good to go. We found a deployment area in Chao Phraya near the Rama 9 bridge. It's a beautiful spot. We feel honored by having this spot allocated to interceptor because we know how important the river is and how important Rama 9 was. We are very close to obtaining the permit. There's a few minor things that we have to get in place, but I feel very comfortable and encouraged by the devotion of the different stakeholders who make this possible. Level 2, as I just mentioned, just putting an interceptor in the middle of the Chao Phraya River is impossible. You should not do that. So we have to work together with the authorities. Can we somehow push up the catch while protecting the economic value of the Chao Phraya? So we have placed cameras, we will detect the plastic flow, and we found a few spots that we can grease the catch with by implementing smaller and simpler technology. So there's a few bridges that we have listed here on the screen where we have put cameras to find the best hotspots, if you will. Where is the plastic coming from and how can we intercept that? Everybody who lives in Bangkok or visits Bangkok knows these great solutions of bamboo. Maybe the ocean cleanup can help finding better tools, more durable tools, smoother tools to guide plastic towards a certain point and then scoop it out to increase the total catch in the city without harming economic importance of that river. This is underway and we are talking to the right authorities to get that in place as soon as we can, but we first start with level 1. Level 3, that is a separate topic. How does plastic behave? The professor already addressed this in his talk. Where is it coming from? Why is it there? Where is it going? Does it sink? Does it go to all the islands or the shores? We have decided to do 3 big researches on Earth to understand that better. Gulf of Thailand is one of them. With great collaboration with Chulalongkorn University, we found a great group of people, scientists, to dive into this. South Africa is also a spot where we do this, and in the Gulf of Mexico, South America. These 3 studies, 3 years, will gain so much knowledge for everybody involved, and it will help negotiations in the treaty because we know what we are talking about if we do these studies. And we feel honored by having a partnership with Chulalongkorn University. The Ocean Cleanup is asked to share experiences and be part of the negotiations in the sidelines of the treaty. The Basel Convention is something that we contribute in ECOSOC and UNEP. What we noticed is that the tech providers who can help solve these problems were not represented enough in those conversations, in those negotiations. So together with Repurpose, we created the Innovation Alliance to give a little bit more voice to those who can help solve these problems. Around 100 innovative ideas, tech providers, and other entrepreneurs, private sector, public sector, are now represented in those negotiations to connect the ambition to a solution. With UNDP, also mentioned by the previous speaker, the Ocean Cleanup and UNDP are collaborating together on how can we give shape to the policymakers and the governments with certain guidelines to the reality. And with the great reputation of UNDP in creating collaboration with governments and policymakers, we hope to bring knowledge and data and technology. And with the combination of those two, we hope to go faster and inspire policymakers to follow certain guidelines and solutions. APAC invited the Ocean Cleanup as well to share experiences that we have to beef up the guidelines that they have. We feel respected and we feel honored by doing this, and everybody who is in this room who knows these guidelines feel inspired by it because it will help the Ocean Cleanup and everybody in this area of cleaning. It will help us having guidelines in place, having policies in place. It will help us to raise funding to accelerate technology development in combating plastic that is on all our beaches and rivers. I will close off with one thing. It's already addressed, the treaty. The treaty is in negotiations. We have 3 more rounds to go. The next round is in Nairobi soon. But I'd like to point you to one part of the treaty, the draft, the preliminary text that is out there, and that is a big step forward. Normally, in the treaty, we talked about awareness campaigns and recycling. Now, the preliminary text includes cleaning what is already out there, policies and initiatives from governments to help technology to clean what is already there, legacy what is already on the beaches, on the beautiful islands of Thailand, and it goes beyond national jurisdiction. This is unique, and we know there will be more negotiations, so we're not there yet, but it's very encouraging to see that all these countries are in agreement moving into this pretty heavy responsibility. One last thing, the power of collaboration. This is a graph that has not much to do with plastic pollution, but this is how we, as a global audience, combated with the ocean layer. What happened? As a world, we decided we cannot let it happen that the ocean layer is, the gap in the ocean layer will increase. And in the Montreal Protocol, we decided to do something about it. And it worked. In 1987, I was of course not born yet. Slowly but surely this curve was going to bend. And it goes up north. And it's good to see that collaboration will actually lead to a better world. So, with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stephen. Could you please remain on the stage as next we're going to have a group photo together. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite all of our speakers to come up on the stage. Kindly join us, Mr. Renaud, Dr. Teresa, Dr. Ton, as well as Mr. Adam, joining Mr. Stephen, who is already on the stage. And thank you, Mr. Stephen, for sharing with us the ocean cleanup projects. Thank you so much for joining us today. After about an hour long of our speakers sharing great information, these are the new great ways of us to help our ocean whether it's conserving water, use less water, or reduce pollutants, choose non-toxic chemicals and dispose of all chemicals properly, or even reduce waste, cut down what you throw away, shop wisely, choose sustainable seafood, buy less plastic or bring a reusable bag, or even reduce vehicle pollution, use fuel efficiently vehicles, carpool or bike, use less energy, choose energy efficient such as light bulbs, practice safe boating, respect habitat, and anytime, anywhere, we all can be volunteers for cleanups at the beach or even in your community. Thank you so much. Another big round of applause for all of our speakers. Thank you so much for joining us today.